Where are we right now?
In the bus.
Where are we going?
The glacier.
What's up, vegan adventurers? Welcome to another exciting vlog from Argentina. And today is a really special vlog because we're gonna visit the famous glacier Perito Moreno. So to get to the glacier, you need to take a bus from El Calafate bus station, and the last bus goes around 1 p.m. and the ride takes around 90 minutes, and it costs around 550 Chilean pesos, which is about $35 return ticket. And also you have to pay a fee for national park, which is around 450 pesos, which is about $25. So together it's around $60 per person. Decided to have a lunch in a bus, and Sanya ordered these vegan burritos from a vegan company on Facebook called Veggies Patagonicos. They're making these raw vegan burritos with the cheese from sunflower seeds. So the distance between El Calafate and the glacier Perito Moreno is around 80 kilometers. And on the way you're passing through the grasslands. On the right side you have the lake Lago Argentino, and then on the left you will see another lake called Lago Roca. So the glacier Perito Moreno is one of the top attractions in Argentina, so you're gonna see lots of tourists traveling with these buses, but you don't have to book the place in advance as there's many buses going here. So as we're getting closer to the glacier, you can already see some mountains with the snow on it. So that's already the beginning of southern Patagonian ice field. And most of it belongs to Chile, which is only about 20 kilometers from here. And you can also notice the change in environment. From the grasslands you get these little bushes and little trees, and then as you're getting closer to the glacier, the trees get bigger and bigger. So after about an hour and something of driving, we got a first view of the glacier Perito Moreno, and it truly looked amazing. So we saw the glaciers like this only from plane before, when we were flying first time to Punta Arenas, and we also saw the glacier in Ushuaia, the glacier Marshall, but it was not a glacier like this, it was more like a snow field on the mountain. So at about 2:30 the bus dropped us here at this drop-off area with restaurants and houses around, and we have around 4.5 hours to explore around until the bus should pick us from here again at 7 p.m. So there's two different ways you can do the hike to the glacier. You can either start up at the top of the hill and come down to the coast, or you can start at the coast like we are and come up to the hill to see the glacier. And it's also prohibited to use the drone here. I don't exactly know why, maybe because of the business reasons. So if you know why you can't use the drone here, type down below. So here it says, caution, mountain lakes and rivers are very cold and deep, but as a healthy vegan you can completely ignore this warning and jump right into the lake, as I'm gonna do later on. Stay tuned for that. So here we could already see some pieces of ice that broke off the glacier and flowed to here. And as I try, the water is really cold, but must be above 0 degrees, because otherwise this lake will be all frozen. And some guy already is jumping in the water, and I would not be surprised if he's vegan, training Wim Hof method. In just few minutes of hiking, we got to this port where the boat tour is going from. So you can also go for a boat tour to see the glacier, but I think it's kind of waste of time and money when you can just hike and see the glacier even closer. So this must be for some extremely lazy people who can't hike for a few minutes. So unlike the Tierra del Fuego National Park, here you can actually see the investment from the money that you put in. And they made a really nice path from the metal, which must have cost lots of money. So getting closer to the glacier, you can see how big it actually is. It has a surface area of 250 square kilometers, with average length of 30 kilometers and average width of 5 kilometers, with a depth of 170 meters, of which 74 meters on average are above the lake. Perito Moreno Glacier is one of only 3 glaciers in the world that's actually advancing and not retreating, about 2 meters per day. Which means it's expanding more out into the lake. And some people try to use this fact as an argument against climate change, but when you look more into it, the whole volume of the glacier is actually decreasing each year. So down here you can see the tour boat, and you can see it's still quite far from the glacier, but that's as close as they're gonna get because of the safety reasons. Because sometimes the glacier ruptures, meaning quite a big pieces of ice fall into the water, and sometimes the whole block of glacier just collapses in the water, which creates a big waves. And when this rupture happens, it creates lots of noise, kind of like an explosion, and also lots of splash, so it's really amazing experience. But it only happens on average each 20 minutes and only lasts few seconds. So some enthusiasts are recording with their cameras all the time and only changing the batteries and memory cards. So this spot is full of viewpoints, also known as balconies, but the problem is usually there are lots of people here taking pictures, so it's hard to take a clear picture without any people. So here I'm just recording the glacier, hoping I would capture the rupture. just when we were leaving this viewpoint, a big rupture happened. It was like a huge explosion. Must have been a really big piece of ice. But I was unfortunately not recording, so it just goes to show that you can be recording for 10 minutes and then turn off your camera and the rupture will happen. So the only way to make sure you're gonna record it is to keep your camera on all the time, which is not gonna happen this time. So here we got to the second viewpoint, and it's even better view of the glacier. We're getting closer and closer to it. And sometimes you think how amazing it would be to actually walk on the glacier itself. And this thought is not far from reality. You can actually book a tour. They're doing walking tours on the glacier. Of course, it's maybe somewhere on the edge where it's more safer, because it could be dangerous to fall in one of the crevices, but it's doable, but a little bit expensive. It costs around, I think, $300 to do it for 5 hours, or you can also do some mini one, and I'm not sure about price of that. And now when the sun came out, the glacier got even more spectacular, with the sun rays reflecting from it. So another interesting thing to me is how all these glaciers and ice fields don't melt during the summer months. So right now here it can get even up to 20 degrees Celsius, which is pretty warm, and the ice would usually melt. But the southern Patagonian ice field, it's kind of a big freezer and has its own climate. As you can see, there are always clouds around, and even the summer months it pretty much stays around zero, so the ice doesn't melt there. So here I finally got lucky and captured the glacier rupture, also known as calving. So there was lots of noise and lots of splash, but there are even bigger ruptures than this one. Sometimes the whole block of ice just collapses and it creates even bigger splash, bigger noise. And the splash also creates a series of waves. That's why the boats are so far, because the waves can sometimes get big and mess up the boat. And here you can see the aftermath of the rupture. So you can see there is quite lots of ice splashed around. So here I'm focusing on this big piece of ice because I think it could collapse any moment, because if you look around there is already a broken pieces all around it. So I think that piece would fall sometimes today. And here on the left side we can see some black discoloration. So I don't know if it's from that walking tour that people walk on it and make it dirty, or it's some natural discoloration. Here we got to the first crossroad, and you can either keep going right to the north balcony and make a loop around, or keep going straight and make a shortcut to the first balcony. Icebergs of various sizes and shapes call from the front of the glacier. Due to their air content, they float, showing only approximately 10% above the surface. The bulk of their volume is hidden below the water. Large icebergs can be seen as they surface when they detach from the base of the glacier. So these black lines you can see here are the layers of sediments. The southern Patagonian icefield, including all these glaciers, is the third largest freshwater reserve after Antarctica and Greenland. Glacier is one of Argentina's top tourist destinations, and it attracts about 100,000 tourists per year. And in 1981, UNESCO declared Los Glaciares National Park a World Heritage Site. Along with the glacier, the park boasts many other popular trekking and hiking destinations, including Mount Fitzroy. Since 1968 and 1988, 32 people have been killed after being hit by large shards of ice shattered dozens of meters away following the rupture of the glacier. The best time to view the rupture is in the afternoon, when the sun warms the glacier enough to cause large shards of ice to fall seemingly almost every half an hour or so. Now we're having some vegan lunch, some sandwiches from the same company we found on Facebook, the Veggies Patagonicos. And you can't wish for better views than this while having lunch here at the first balcony. The Perito Moreno Glacier is the third largest glacier of the southern Patagonian icefield and of South America, well known because of the dramatic thinning and retreat. Large calving events sometimes occur, forming icebergs that can block Brazo Uppsala and disrupt navigation. From this viewpoint you can mostly see the ablation area of the glacier. However, during the clear days, some of the peaks within the accumulation area are visible. Perito Moreno has an area of 254 square kilometers, varying in altitude from approximately 3,000 meters above sea level to 185 meters above sea level at its terminus. It has a length of 23.5 kilometers from Cerro Pietrobelli at the ice divide with Chile, and a maximum length of 31 kilometers at the ice divide with Glacier Frias. The 1996 seismic shooting recorded an ice thickness of 700 meters at the glacier centerline, 8 kilometers from the front, where the bedrock is 200 meters below sea level. In 2010, a 510-meter hole was drilled with a hot water drill to reach the glacier bed. This research helps understanding the effects of subglacial water pressure on glacial dynamics and predict its behavior under climate change. About every 4 or 5 years, the glacier advances enough to reach the shore of Argentina Lake, damming the southern portion arm of the lake known as Brazo Rico against the huge wall of ice. The water level on the Brazo Rico side can rise as much as 60 meters above the surface of Argentina Lake. The tremendous pressure created by the dammed water eventually breaks the wall of ice, causing a massive rupture and setting huge shards of glacier into the lake. The first recorded rupture occurred in 1917, while the latest rupture occurred on January 19, 2013. So here we got to the lower balcony, and this is as close as you can get to the glacier, and from here path goes back up and around, making a loop. Danger, no trespassing. When ice falls, pieces are thrown violently dozens of meters away. This action caused the death of 32 people between 1968 and 1988. So after we started going up from the lower balcony, we didn't get a good view anymore because of the trees. Now the path turn around, making a loop, and you can also see this spot on Maps.me. So I was thinking this is the place where you connect to the glacier from the land, where they go for those tours, but I don't think the black markings is from people, it's more like sediments. So the only problem when you're walking on this path is that there are no toilets on the way. So if you're hiking here for about 3 hours or so, you need to pee sometimes, and the only way where you can go is somewhere in the bushes. And while going to pee, we also found some cranberries, so they're really good, full of vitamins. glacier is named after explorer Francisco Moreno, a pioneer who studied the region during the 19th century, who was more interested in defending this territory during the dispute with Chile rather than Glacier itself. The Subantarctic Forest. These forests range along the Andes for 2,200 kilometers in Argentina from northern Neuquén to southern Tierra del Fuego. The most common trees found are the various beech species from the genus Notophagos. Lago Argentino, the southernmost of the big lakes in Argentina, it has an area of about 1,482 square kilometers. Various glaciers calve in the water of the westerly arms of the lake. Rio Santa Cruz drains across the eastern steppes into the Atlantic Ocean. They forgot to mention that it's the biggest lake in Argentina, never mind. The best time to visit the national park is during the months of December through early March. The summer months provide the warmest temperatures, which hover around 18.5 degrees Celsius. June and July account for the coldest months, with temperatures around 1 degree Celsius. The fauna within the national park consists of 24 different mammal species and 115 bird species. The mammals include pumas, lynx, ferret, skunk, Andean deer, the Patagonian fox, and dwarf armadillo. The bird species include ducks, falcons, eagles, peregrine falcon, flamingo, Indian goose, and many more. At this point we heard the loudest bang since we've been here. It was kind of like a big explosion, but there are trees in the way so we couldn't see where it actually fell down. And down here you can see a place where the ice fell down. Looking at these photos from 1901 till present, you can see how the glacier was progressing more towards the land. So here we kind of captured another rupture, and you see how difficult it is to capture it. It can happen any moment, and even if you have a camera on like me, it takes a few seconds to put it where it is, and you're just gonna capture the end. And to capture the whole thing, you would have to have a separate camera on all the time, pointing at the glacier. So from the viewpoint up there, we started going down again, connecting back to the lower balconies. The Viedma Glacier. Viedma Glacier is the largest glacier in Argentina and second largest glacier in South America after Glacier Uppsala. The length of 70 kilometers from Volcan Lautaro makes it the longest glacier in South America. So we just got back to the first balcony where we had lunch, and we still have a nice sunshine on the glacier. And from here we start to go back the same way along the coastline. Alright, so we're slowly heading back because we have to make it by 7 p.m. for the bus. But this trip was definitely worth it, even though it cost a little bit more money. For the views like this when the sun is shining on the glacier, it's definitely worth it. It's much more accessible than other places, and I have never seen anything like this before. Glacier Perito Moreno is one of 48 glaciers that comprise the southern Patagonian icefield. With an area of 16,800 square kilometers, it is the second largest contiguous icefield in the world, stretching across the southern Andes, measuring almost 355 kilometers long and 48 kilometers wide. Along with the northern Patagonian icefield, these present-day icefields are remnants of the last ice age, about 18,000 to 17,500 years ago, when all of the southern Chile and Argentina was covered in a thick sheet of ice, an area estimated to be about 480,000 square kilometers. When you look down at the lake, you can see many icebergs floating there, so you can see how far they can travel before they melt. Approximately 10% of the Earth is covered by glaciers. During the last ice age, they covered 1/3 of the Earth's surface. The most vital ingredient for glacier making is the location where snow stays all year round. When new layers arrive each winter, they start to crush existing blankets. All that weight distorts the snow crystals that make up the older red layers, turning them into sugar-like grains. As time passes, these grains get bigger and denser until eventually genuine glacial ice is produced. Alaska is estimated to have more than 100,000 glaciers. Most of them remain unnamed. If all the glaciers in the world melted, the sea level would rise about 70 meters. Spiti Glacier in Pakistan holds the record for the fastest glacier surge. In 1953, it raised more than 12 kilometers in 3 months, averaging about 112 meters per day, compared to only 2 meters per day of Perito Moreno. Arctic and Antarctic are where 99% of all the glacial ice is located. That said, the Greenland ice sheet covers about 80% of the surface of Greenland. Chile also boasts a fairly sizable collection of glaciers, being home to 31,000, over 80% of all those located in South America. Because of how dense glacier ice becomes, it looks a lot different than the ice we normally see in ice cubes or our freezers. Glaciers act like a filter and absorb red and yellow light, but reflect blue, which explains why they seem to be blue in color. Older sections of glacial ice are even denser and appear even darker in color.
Look at this, it's ice from that glacier.
Alright, so we are back at the beginning, and as I promised, I'm gonna try this ice cold water. So first I'm just trying it with my feet, but only after about 20 seconds it becomes really painful and you have to get out. So here I'm doing the fast approach, so I quickly run in the water and then dip in until my neck and then quickly run back out. And sometimes this works better than if you're doing the slow approach, getting slowly used to the cold water, because if the water is really cold, it will take you like half an hour to completely get used to it. So here I'm explaining that it's not such a big shock for my body, but my feet are getting really cold and painful really quickly, so that's why I have to get out. So here I'm trying to get up on this little iceberg for a photo, but it was extremely slippery, but you can see I'm staying in the water for a little bit longer. And this time I stayed in the water for a little bit longer with my upper body. So you can see the key is to try it over and over again until you get used to it more and more. And as you can see, on the third time I was even able to swim, and I was set to swim around this iceberg. Can I do it? So this practice of being in a cold water or cold environment is called Wim Hof method, and I was actually practicing it even before I knew about Wim Hof. I was already taking cold showers as a teenager and even taking my shirt off when it was sunny on a cold winter day. So some of the benefits I noticed from doing the Wim Hof method are immediately feeling better after doing this. Also stronger immune system. It stimulates your muscles so you feel stronger, and it also helps with recovery, especially if you take a cold shower straight after a high intensity workout. Alright, so it's about 7 p.m. and we're already in a bus heading back to Calafate. So you can still see the glacier from the window here. And what are my impressions of the glacier? So is it worth it to travel all the way here from Europe just to see this glacier? I would say it's worth it if you're also going to hike the Fitzroy hike in El Chaltén. But if you're going only to see the glacier, I would say it's not something special. You can also see glaciers closer to Europe, like Greenland or Iceland. But nevertheless, Perito Moreno Glacier is something special. It's not so easy to see in the world, especially with such an easy access with the bus. So I would definitely recommend, especially if you're a glacier enthusiast and want to see the amazing ruptures. Now we are passing the Lago Roca, and in the background you can see the hills with the stepas. So you can see that nothing grows on those hills and it's all just the grasslands. So it must be extremely difficult to grow here some fruits or vegetables with such a bad conditions. So what are our plans for South America before we leave to Europe? So we plan to stay in El Calafate for a few more days, do some hiking, and then we're gonna travel to El Chaltén, which is about 3 hours away from Calafate, and there we're gonna do the famous Fitzroy hike, which will be highlight of our trip in South America, so you must stay tuned for that. And after that we'll fly to Buenos Aires, where we'll spend maybe 1 week, and that will conclude our 6-month trips of South America. So I hope you enjoyed watching the glacier and learned some new facts about glaciers. So stay tuned for the final finish, and for now, stay healthy and stay adventurous!